Welcome everybody that's here live with us. I'm Celeste Mendelson, and I'm the host for Treating Trauma with Yoga. And with me today is Carla Martin, author of Discovering Her. And I am going to be talking to Carla. Carla, did you have a question or something?
No, I'm very excited to be here.
Author Carla, I'm so glad you're here today. And I wanted to ask you some questions about the book Discovering Her first. So tell me about the book. Tell me about what it is, and then anything else that you have to tell me about it.
Okay, so first I'll let you see the book. This is what the
Woo!
book looks like, and
I love
it's
that.
thank you. Discovering Her. Let's start the journey. And really, the woman on the cover. This is every woman.
Mm-hmm.
This is me. This is you, and she represents the hat. Represents the covering and masking that we sometimes do throughout our lives when we're dealing with different situations. Um, and then there's also, as it's coming up, she's discovering herself. And this represents, if you can look here, this is the journey that, she's on, and that you and I and every woman we're on. So it's really about learning how to take off the mask, to stop covering. And I share my life story in this book, um, of some things that I went through, some traumatic things I had gone through throughout my life, my childhood, and how that impacted my teenage years and my adulthood. And it's also a way for me to pull you in as a reader. It's an interactive book, so I'm asking you questions. And then the second part of the book is a journal that's embedded in the book, because I wanted to make space for the reader as they're hearing about my journey to take their own journey, and to also be able to reflect on their journey. So I created that space in a journal in the back of this to be able to take your notes and to just reflect on the things that you're dealing with.
Thank you. That is sounds like an amazing plan and idea to get people involved um, with the recovery process that you've already gone through. So let me ask you, why did you write the book? What was the inspiration for this?
Okay, so I'll go back to 2018. Rather, I'll go way back. I've actually always wanted to write a book about my life and how I grew up, because I've run into so many people who share the same journey, struggle with the same struggles or issues. But in 2019, that particular year, it there was so much going on. The beginning of the year, I was dealing with a lot of uh, just anxiety, trying to balance work and trying to balance home life. And it was just difficult. I was just getting filled with a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know where it was coming from. I was trying to be superwoman, trying to do it all, trying to care for everybody's needs. And in the meantime, I was neglecting myself, and I was just basically burnt out. And on the tail end of that year, my family had tragedy. My cousin was murdered, um, by someone that she was with for 15 years, and she was 40 years old. And it was a domestic violence situation that I had no idea that she was in until maybe like the last year, and when she was murdered. But that was devastating for our family. And for me, it triggered some things that I did not expect. And so, I had many conversations. People were talking to me, Carla, what's going on? You're not yourself. Or, what are you going through? And then I had someone within my family talk to me, and they basically said, hey, maybe you need to get some therapy, and it's okay. Maybe there are some things that you need to probably work through. And so although my cousin was in that situation, what it triggered for me was I also grew up in domestic violence. So I was watching um, in a sense from where her kids were, thinking because she left behind two kids, a son and a daughter. And so that hit me hard because I'm like, I can't imagine what they had seen growing up. And then also dealing with sexual abuse, being molested um, 3 times, by the time I was 18 or 16, I would say. So there were some things that really impacted me. And so I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety, just dealing with a lot of internal issues. And so that was really what really motivated me to write this book, because I knew that, okay, I am not alone in this. People are struggling, and I want to be able to use my life story as a as an example, but also to see that we can all get through this together.
Yeah. Wow. Um, so that's hard. That's hard. Yeah. Um, so tell me about, you mentioned your family. Tell me about your family.
So I am my family. I've been married for 23 years. I thought, well, it'll be 23 years the end of this year. So I've been with my husband 24 years. We met at church, and we were very young. And so he's awesome. I've learned so much from him, and just learned so much from my family in general. We have two boys, and they are 10 and 7, almost 11. One just turned 7. And they are our miracle boys. We say they are miracle babies because we had a tough time having kids. It took us about 12 years to have children. We did infertility, and we struggled a lot in wanting to have kids and trying to have kids. And we had, pregnant 4 times, with, miscarried twice. And you know, our two boys, uh, they're here. And so I'm learning a lot from my family. I think as I've been going through this journey, they have been key. And I've learned a lot from them, being able to see myself, and you know, um, just being able to put the things that I'm learning in motion, and just having that support from my family means a lot.
Yeah. Family support is really important. Um, so is what tell me what you would like people to know about you.
Okay, so what I've learned, especially over the past couple of years, is that it's okay to prioritize yourself.
Mm.
I have learned to invest in myself, because I was so used to, and I think this comes from growing up in domestic violence. You're so used to putting people before you. I had a very abusive stepfather, and so that became the foundation of how I viewed myself. you know and and I believed all of it, the way that he would mistreat my mom and treat my siblings. And so I had this, I struggled a lot with not with feeling like I wasn't good enough. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I believed the things that he said. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. And so carrying that with me, um, it started showing up throughout my life, whether, as an adult, as an employee, when I'm having a performance review, and I really could not just share the amazing things that had done throughout that year. And it just really shows up in different areas in my marriage, as a parent. But I wanted to say that I had taken on the caretaker role, and I couldn't see myself. So one
Mhm.
thing I want people to know, that it's okay to prioritize yourself. It's okay to invest in yourself. It's okay not to be superwoman.
Hmm.
And so I've learned a lot, from my journey, on my journey. And I've also learned that I'm resilient. I'm kick butt.
Right on.
Which I didn't know, that as I was writing this book, it's a way that the title is so fitting, Discovering Her, Let's Start the Journey. There were so many things that I discovered about myself, and that I'm still actually discovering. I'm still on my journey. You never get off of your journey, right? Until the day you die. But yeah, I've learned how kick butt I am.
That's awesome. So, I mean, actually, you said something that just kind of triggered for me, which was you said, I learned how resilient I am. And resilience is one of the things that they talk about a lot in trauma treatment, right? Is like, can we move beyond this? What can we do to grow from it rather than be stuck with it? Can we use it as a place for growth, as a place to stand on to move forward? And it sounds like that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing here.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's taken me I didn't really see it as an issue until my late 30s, late 40s. I'm getting ready to go into my 50s next year,
Okay.
but I really started to see it show up in different ways, and it's tough because in order to get from, okay, you're going through this trauma, but to get to the other side of that where I'm free, or I feel like I'm at peace, or I feel like it's not holding me back,
Right.
because I felt so stuck. I felt stuck. I felt I'm not good enough. Even before I got married years ago, I thought, how in the world am I going to get married? Being in this place, all of this stuff has impacted me. It impacted the way I viewed men. It impacted the way I viewed myself. It impacted, how the lens of how I viewed myself, through my stepfather's lens. And I struggled a lot. But what it did for me is that this is why I also wanted to write the book, because I know that I'm not alone in this struggle. And sometimes it feels like, when you go through a traumatic situation, it feels so impossible and so difficult to overcome, or to get past that, to get beyond that. And that's what I really wanted to do. But I had to really dig deep and do that internal work. I started seeing a therapist, and a lot of time I never thought, I don't know if I thought that I had like this stigma. I know in society we have a stigma of therapy, and that it's something wrong. You should be able to work out your own problems. But it was amazing. And when I thought to myself, I should have done this years ago, because it really helped me to work through some things. And doing that internal work, it just really moved me further along, than I was so stuck. And that's what it did. It didn't happen overnight, so I had to do the work. And really, for me, journaling was key, because it helped me to pour out all of those things that were inside. Praying helped for me, because my faith in God, but just really looking at myself through the lens of God, and of how He created me, instead of being defined by what others said I should be, or who they said, thought I should be. So yeah, it's been a journey.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's a great journey, though. It's
Hmm.
heading. I mean, it's just like, you found yourself in this place um, of of challenge. Okay, and I'm guessing it wasn't all. I got it all handled. I bet you there was places where it was really pretty dark and hard, but you
Yeah,
pulled yourself up from it, and that's the key.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And what I realized as I, talk about the woman on the cover, I got so used to, because the book goes in depth about, I feel like we all go through trauma, and I have many examples of traumatic situations that I've been in, but I use the one of sexual abuse and domestic violence, because that one just really, it was hard to overcome. As when you're abused sexually, or you're seeing your mom beaten, or you start to take on that. that abuse is also coming to you, right? You're sitting alongside your parent going through the abuse too. And so I hid a lot, as I was growing up. I did not want to be visible. So even in school, I was the kid that kind of wanted to, oh, please don't let the teacher call on me because I feel like I'm stupid, or I feel like I have nothing, of value to say. And, the way that my stepfather treated my mom, I felt like I was not worthy. I felt like I had no value. And that carried throughout my life, and it was a struggle. I mean, even as the biggest question that I had from that was, who am I? It
Mm.
was very difficult for me to identify who I was because I was so used to trying to become the person that my stepfather said I was supposed to be, and it was a way for me to try to manage his however he would respond. If I felt like I did something good that day and he was happy, then I attributed to, oh, I must have done something right. So I got into this thing of I just have to please him, which became a thing of I'm people pleasing throughout my life. But what I, as I've gotten older and have gone in this journey, really discovering myself, is that you're never going to be able to please people. People are going to try to tell you what you should do and how you should be, but you'll be crazy, right? Because you can never do enough. The only person that can really meet all of your needs is God. I can't. I cannot meet all of those needs, and so I lost myself. I lost myself, and I wouldn't even, I don't know if I would say even lost myself. I don't even know if I knew myself to begin with, because I had to take on this role of this is who you're going to be. And so I found myself in different situations as I got older. Like I could be a chameleon. I just adapt and change, to whatever the situation would be. And but there was never Carla. What does Carla think? What are Carla's opinions? That, oh, I can have opinions, I can have thoughts, that I can do that, And so along this journey, along this, what I started to see is I was in survival mode a lot. I learned how to survive as a kid. There are certain things I had to do in order to survive. So that survival mode carried through my teen years, it carried through my adult years. And so I never got a chance to really just enjoy life. I was always in a place of surviving. And so when you're in a mode of just surviving, you don't necessarily look toward or toward the future. You don't really look forward to, oh, this is going to happen or that's going to happen, because you're trying to plan for here and now. I'm just trying to survive today. And so I started to see how that became my mindset. And I really got to a place where I'm like, I'm just tired of this. I want to be able to enjoy life. I'm tired of being held as a prisoner, you know, the from my stepfather, just in my head, and at this time he was gone for many years. He had passed away, but he had such a stronghold on me mentally that I found myself, I'm constantly being traumatized, and so I just had to really get in there and say, you know what? I got to start breaking down some of these limiting beliefs that's telling me that I'm not good enough. It's not true, And so it was a lot of work, a lot of work. But one thing I can truly say is that I feel such freedom from doing that work, and I'm a lot happier. I tell you that. I feel like I'm not living in a prison, because you can be out of abuse, but you can still be mentally imprisoned. And that's what I saw for myself. I was out of abuse for many years, but mentally I was still very much in prison.
Hmm.
And so it's like taking that power back, and I'm going to do something different about this. I can do something different.
It looks like you're already doing it. um, so you said something that and I know when we talked on the phone before, we talked about this, but you said it again. It's like it, one of the things that happens in trauma is that we lose ourselves. We forget who we are, or we maybe never knew who we were. So there was something in your book, I think, that talked about how do I know what I need when I don't know who I am.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're talking about the conversation we had.
Yeah.
I was at I think this is 2 3 years ago maybe. I had this coach. I'm a huge believer of coaches and getting help. Um, so as I was going through that crazy period where I was trying to balance life and balance work, and it was just the stress and the anxiety from that. I had a coach who asked me, she said, Carla, what is it that you need? And for the life of me, I could not tell you what I needed. That was like a foreign question that she asked me because I never really thought about what I needed. I got so used to hearing other people tell me what to do or say, as I grew up, this is what you're going to, there was never space for me to have needs. And so I didn't realize that until I got into therapy. But that was I struggled over that question. I couldn't tell you what I needed. I could tell you what my husband needed. I need to do this for him, or what my kids needed. I need to do that, clean their clothes, or this, or so many different things. As a mom, as a wife, I could tell you this is what I need to do. As an employee, okay, the people I work for, they need me to do this, and I need to do that. And so I was so consumed with that there was never this space for me to even have needs or to allow myself to see my needs. And so what I did was once that light bulb clicked on, it changed a lot for me because I realized in 2018 why I was in burnout mode.
Hmm.
I was in burnout mode because I was trying to be this superwoman, and to this day, I don't even like that word superwoman anymore. It's a bad word for me. And so I started changing some things, and that's really where it started because I realized that there are things that I was doing in my life, and I was taking on a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say no. I felt the obligation sometimes to take on some things, and then at the end of it would feel resentful. But really is my fault because I would say yes, and I didn't really know how to set those boundaries, right? And so that's what really helped me to make that shift of uh, really changing some things around. I had to learn how to say no, set those boundaries, stop trying to control different situations. Things don't have to be folded. The clothes don't have to be folded the way that I fold them. My way is not the right way. And so accepting those things and really allowing myself to have that space for me, getting to know myself is what I never had that space at, even as a young child to kind of just um explore things. So I feel like now as an adult I have that where I'm exploring who I am, because I was always the child that stayed hidden, even because of the abuse, sexual abuse. I felt like somehow it was my fault that I caused it because there were three different situations that happened in. And so as a teenager, I started covering up. I would wear baggy clothes because I felt like that would attract people to me. And so I wanted to stay hidden. So in a lot of ways, I was hidden even from myself, because I would take on these different, like, okay, if you want me to be like this, I'll be that way. If you want me to be, and so I found myself trying to, I felt most valued when I was meeting somebody else's needs.
Being a
And I,
chameleon.
yes,
Yeah.
or I felt validated or felt accepted when I was meeting someone's needs, or, and so I didn't realize that until a couple of years. And so once I figured out, Carla, you really got to look at what your needs are, and not just only what your needs are, but explore who you are. What are some things you like? What are some things that you don't like? Um, how do you see yourself? I really had to check in. How do I really see myself? Am I looking at myself? Am I viewing myself through the eyes of my abusers? Or how do I really see myself?
Hmm.
Am I trying to get my validation or value from other people? Or do I feel that within, from within myself? So it was a lot of work. A lot of work. And but yeah, it started off with that question of, Carla, what do you need? And I think that's something that we need to ask ourselves often, because so many times as mothers, as parents, just life in general, we're working, we're trying to run a household, and we get so busy. We get so busy sometimes meeting other people's needs that we don't sit and, take the time to look at who we are, how life is impacting us, and we just keep going. We just go, we go. And so if we feel like we're not going and doing, then we feel like we're not being productive, or we feel like we're not being useful. At least for myself, that's how I felt.
Hmm. That totally makes sense. It totally makes sense when we're so involved in other people's lives, we can't be there for ourselves. Yeah. So I think you've given me an answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So what have you learned through your journey? Uh, what has this given you from
Yeah.
trauma to recovery?
So I really, you have to do the work. I learned that, I think there's a saying, I don't know where I got the saying from, but I heard it a couple of times, that if you don't deal with your past will deal with you. And it's so true. So many times, I felt like, oh, I don't really want to, uh, because in order to move forward, you gotta look back and see where it all started. And it's painful. It's painful, and no one wants to inflict pain on themselves again, right? Going through it once was, feel like, okay, that was enough, but that's the only way. You have to kind of take off that band-aid, and so you can get the healing. And so that's what I learned, that I have to really go back and revisit some of those places, and really start breaking down those barriers, the things that I learned. Okay, I learned how to hide because I had to survive. That was then. I no longer have to hide. I no longer have to survive because I'm not in a situation that um where I need to survive. I can start looking at how to thrive. I want to enjoy life now. I no longer want to be a prisoner. And so again, it didn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of just, here here's where I'm at. This is where I am. And even just accepting the things that happen. Yes, I went through, was sexually abused, molested 3 times. It happened. I went through abuse, domestic violence, watching my mom grow up, being talked down to, being mistreated. And it happened. It happened. And I wouldn't wish that for anybody, but I had to accept that that's what happened. And I also had to see, okay, for me, how am I going to get through this? Because I can't go forward if I'm always looking backward. If I'm stuck, there are things that kept me stuck. And I just got to a point where I was tired. This is so exhausting. I'm tired of trying to people please. I'm tired of trying to just not be myself, because you can't be your authentic self, right? You're trying to juggle who are you gonna be today? Who is this? Got so exhausting. So I think the biggest thing is really doing that internal work, and really looking at myself. Even in the book, that it helped me so much that at the end of each chapter I have a section where I call it discovering and reflection. Because I think it's so important for us to sit back and just reflect on what we're going through.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, so can you identify? There's probably more than one thing, but can you identify what shifted for you and how you walked through the changes? I mean, did you use a format like your book to get you where you needed to go?
So for me, I think there were a couple of things. Really, the book was one form away from me. It was very therapeutic. So as I am actually in my therapy sessions, a lot of the stuff that I put in the book, it's really me discovering myself, right? So
Mm.
I'm doing, it's like I'm simultaneously writing this book, also getting healed. And
Right.
so what I learned, and I talk about this in the book, what I learned is that you have to uncover some things. Like I said before, you got to go through this period where you're willing, and it can't be forced. It cannot be forced. Someone can't make you do something. You have to be at a point where you're just like, okay, I'm fed up with how I'm living or how this is impacting my life. Um, and had to start uncovering some things. But once I started uncovering those things, I was able to start healing. you know if I needed to have some conversations with people, I needed to have the conversation. um One thing that my as I was having a therapy session with my therapist, she had me do was write down a letter to my stepfather. He had passed many years at this point. What would I say to him?
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, I wrote down like a 5-page letter, and I did not realize how much anger I had inside that needed to be released. It needed to come out. And there were so many things. And so after that, that was just an exercise for me to be able to free myself, right? There were things that I had done, years ago, and things that I had to look at. There's some things I'm going to have to forgive, or I need to forgive. Not to say that it's to let the person off of the hook, right? Or to accept what they've done. By no means that, I feel like they're going to have to answer to those things that they did too. But it was freeing for me. I am not allowing you to hold me hostage anymore. It's my way of saying I am releasing you, and now I can finally move forward. But it's really in like I said before, that foundation that was set when I was a kid from my stepfather, and even just watching my mom go through that of not good enough. I had to really look deeply in it. Like I said, who do I see myself as? What is my self-talk? How do I really see me? And really getting in there, sitting with myself, spending time with lots of tears,
Mm.
lots of journaling for me is also very therapeutic, because sometimes it's difficult for me to verbalize, or to just really in my head just think, okay, this is how I'm doing. But once I get it on paper, it just flows. And so that helps me to be able to look at the paper and say, oh my gosh, this is where you're at. And then from where, accepting, okay, this is where you're at. Okay, so how are you going to take this? What step are you going to take to move forward? And so it's a combination of all of these little steps that you take that allows me to be able to see, okay, wow, this is where I am. It's hard. It's fear. There were times I was fearful. There were times when I just felt like I can't do this. This is too hard. This is too hard. Like, I don't want to revisit that pain. But once I started to uncover it, that healing started taking place. And once I started healing, I was able to see who I was, who I am, and not only see who I am, but also embrace who I am unapologetically,
Yeah.
right? It allowed me to see, okay, Carla, these are some of your imperfections, and that's okay. But here are some things that you do really well, and some things that are unique to you and that you're amazing at. And that's awesome too. And so it allowed me to be able to accept myself fully, and that's it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. I love listening to you talk about this. It reminds me of something that I've heard for years. It's a phrase that is used often in like recovery circles, which is uncover, discover, discard. Right? We've got to do that work. The piece that's missing from those three words there is recover. I think we have to recover from all of the stuff before we can decide what we're going to discard. Right? We got to look at it and go, oh, what do I do now? Right? So what do I want to do with this? How do I want to shift this? How do I want to be different for myself? It's an awesome process. It sounds like you've really done a lot of work on it.
Yeah, and as you're talking about recovery, it reminds me I have a chapter in here on repair and maintenance.
Ah, good.
Because there are some things that we really have to be repaired from.
Yeah.
We're beaten up, broken down, trauma in any form. Um, it just does something to us, and it's like a car. You have to you got to get that maintenance. When it breaks down, you can't just, and it's not like just a one-time thing. You got to, constantly make sure you're maintaining and checking on it. And so, yeah, recovery, that's so important.
So it sounds like your car analogy makes me think. So, there are things you have to do on a regular basis to take care of your car.
Hmm.
And there are things that we have to do on a regular basis to take care of us,
Hmm.
right?
Yep,
So it's
absolutely,
like not different. It's the same idea.
absolutely.
Okay. So what shifted? How did you change this? What did you do? Where did you, I mean, I'm guessing, right? So you did the work, you did the daily maintenance that was necessary in
Hmm.
order to manifest. How did that feel?
Yeah, it felt, it is freeing is the word that I could really say it, freeing of trying to please people, freeing of trying to, whether, things that I may have done and not realize that I was trying to be accepted, or just freeing. And I think that the thing that what shifted is that, like I said before, I made myself a priority.
Mm-hmm.
I made space for me. And so you know that meant even at times of, being a mom, where I was before, burnt out, or as an employee, you're doing things and you're constantly just going, going, going. I literally made space for me. So before coronavirus, I would have my time every Sunday where I would take an hour or so, and I would just go somewhere, whether it was to Starbucks or whatever. And I made that space for me. So I intentionally, so it's very intentional about the things that I did. As I said before, learning to say no. I don't have to do everything, you know, allowing people to be able to be empowered. Because when I say yes to everything, it's just like teaching someone something. If they know you're going to do it, why do I have to learn?
Right.
You're gonna do it for me. So, when I started backing off and saying, okay, no, you can do this, or I'll do that, but you can do this. And I think the biggest thing is, like I said, breaking down those barriers. What really identifying what those limiting beliefs were for me, not believing that I was good enough, was the main one for me. That showed up time and time at, as I was in a performance review, or oh, I'm not a good enough mom, I should be doing this instead of doing that, or I'm not doing enough. So it's never in this place of where I'm just, it's okay. And so what shifted is I learned to make space for myself, and then I also started celebrating the things that I did,
Mm.
because when you're in this constant mode of I'm not good enough, the thing that I realized is that it's hard for you to verbalize or see the amazing things that are happening or that you are good at, because you're always shooting higher. There's this perfectionistic view that like, I should be here. I'm here, but I should be here. And so I held myself back instead of, okay, but this is where I am. Let me enjoy this space. Let me celebrate this. So
Mm.
I made the space for myself. I started celebrating myself, like, okay, well, that's not my talent over there. But what I am good at, I'm really good at connecting with people.
Mm.
I am really good at gaining people's trust, and so I said, you hear people say these things to you, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I am good at this.
Right?
And really owning that. What I used to do is, if someone would say something, or we're very critical of ourselves, right? And so I would own all of the negative things about me. Oh yes, I'm this. I would feel like sometimes I'm not a great speaker, or this is not my talent. I'm not good at what she does, or I'm not good. Comparing myself. I'm not good at what she. Oh, I should be more like her in this, or I should be more like her in that. Like, wow, but I am great at this.
Right?
And so it really, I learned how to make space in the way that I take the time to care for myself, whether that's mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, whatever it is, but also embracing who Carla is,
Mm-hmm.
and loving who Carla is unapologetically.
Ah, that's awesome.
So being at that space is so freeing, and I love to pull that out of other people too.
That's awesome. So, how did all this change that happened to you affect the people that you love, those people in your life, your family, your friends?
Yeah. It's funny. I know I can't give all of the examples. I think one of the things, as far as, I'll use my family as an example, they really were supportive as they saw me go through my challenges and the struggles. Um, they really supported me. One of
Mm.
the things, it helped me. Okay, I've got to be, not, as I say, superwoman, try to take on everything. So I had to ask for help, in order to make that space for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, husband, I need you to do this, and he's cooking a lot more and doing dishes, but this
That's
is what
awesome.
really helped me. So, just really supporting me in that way, and just really taking on, but it takes me asking, what, I'm like, why should I ask? They see I did it. But no, there's some things you have to ask, because you won't get it unless you ask.
Right?
And I use this example in the book. My kids, they know when it's mommy time, my me time. We call it me time. Oh, it's mommy's having her me time. And even they get it. So it's like, when you put it out there and you set the boundaries, and set up how you want things to go, people will support you in that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my youngest son said once, I was going to get a massage one Sunday after church, and he said, Oh, my oldest said, "Mommy, well, we want to spend more time with you. Can't we spend more time with you?" And I, I've been home with them every day, all day, and so I appreciate that they want to spend time with me, and as I do with them. And so the oldest says, "Well, we would rather spend time." And the youngest says, "Well, if she gets a massage, she'll be able to do more things for us." So it really taught me in that moment that, wow, a 6-year old can understand that even if you take care of yourself, you will be able to have that energy to take care of me. And so I want them to learn how it's okay to give. So it's this thing of give, you give to others, but I also want them to learn how to receive, because I never learned that. I learned how to give. I knew how to do that. Very difficult for me to receive, because I was
Yeah.
always the giver. And so this is it's incredible how, they are my support, and I've learned so much from them. And I appreciate them a lot.
And you're teaching them some good behaviors now too, right? Because they see how you're doing it, they'll model that.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't think we could do this interview without talking about this at this point in time. So how are you dealing with the trauma from the racial injustice that's coming to the forefront these days?
Wow. Whew, that's a whole other interview. We could spend a whole hour on that
I
one.
know.
It's been difficult, to be honest. As you know, when you're traumatized, it is hard. It's hard to heal from it. But when you the continuously you're traumatized, this is very difficult. It's heartbreaking. I've cried. I've shed lots of tears. I have two black sons, a black husband, a black brother, and just to see all of this, it's it's difficult. Still paying for change. Um, Still processing everything and taking it from there. So we're just taking it one day at a time. It's not easy by any means. It's very difficult to go through, and trying to heal from it when you're constantly being traumatized
Yeah.
is tough.
Yeah. Thank you for being upfront and open with that. Because yeah, it is tough. It's very hard. I found myself yesterday ranting on the phone to a friend about my feelings about all of that, because it occurred to me that if I had been the person walking down or walking away from a store that I had given a $20 bill to that turned out to be counterfeit, the police would have looked at me and said, "Oh, she probably didn't even know,"
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And that benefit of the doubt isn't given to everybody, and it should be.
Absolutely.
And it should be until you know differently. I mean, I could be a crook. Who knows? You know, I
Yeah.
could be. I could be this little 63-year-old woman who's like putting it over on everybody.
Hmm.
But you don't know, and until you know,
Right.
that we have to be able to respond to people um, as we would like to be responded to. It's that
Absolutely.
same idea of do what you would want done for you,
Absolutely.
and I think that's true. So we're running a little bit close to the close to the wire, but not too far. So my last question is an upbeat one. What gives you joy?
What gives me joy? Really, peace.
Hmm.
When I'm at peace, just having that internal peace, being at peace, and my joy ultimately it comes from God. Because even in the midst of all the crazy that's going on, it's unsettling. You feel like anxiety and all of that stuff can come up, and it's. Can you hear that back? My peace
No.
is Alex. Hold on one second, Alex. Okay, hold on, Alex. But again, my peace is, my peace is being interrupted right now. I'm a little horny. They did really well, almost to the hour. Um,
Mhm.
really, like I said, understanding and living the way that God created me to live. Really just owning who I am. God created me with certain unique abilities and strengths, and I'm not good at this, but I'm good at it. But God created me a certain way, and really being able to step in that and own that gives me peace, and also mentoring others to do the same. Really bringing out the best of qualities, or for us to all accept whatever imperfections or unique abilities that we have. So that gives me joy.
Hmm. That's awesome. And massages are probably on your list too,
Oh,
I'm guessing.
absolutely. Of course. And so I miss it. My son comes and he's like, "Mommy, okay, I'll give you the massage."
I love it.
Yeah. So yes, that's the first thing I'm gonna do when I get back out of coronavirus.
There you go. Carla, it's been really wonderful talking to you today. This has been great. I know it's a learning experience for both of us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I love this. I love being able to do this. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
All
Can I
right.
say I'll send you a link for the book
Yeah,
for you to
please.
be able to post on your book, because it's I think it's amazing. I even use the book. I even journal in the book
Using the book,
myself.
of
So
course. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Please do, and I'll post it on the website on my page and also in the group, and people will know where to go. That'd be perfect.
alrighty. Thank you, Celeste. See ya.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Take it easy. Have a good rest of your day.